Hello, friends. We are, I believe, live. Sorry, I'm a touch late. Okay. Can you hear me okay? Somebody shoot me a message. I always get paranoid that I've done something wrong on the mechanical end. So, if you can all settle into your normal sitting positions, thank you, Kale, for letting me know we're good. If you can all settle into your normal sitting positions, so typically that's as we talked about last time, Burmese, which is just cross-legged, half lotus, which is one of your feet up on the opposite thigh, and full lotus, which is both feet up on the opposite thigh. That is traditionally conceived of as the most solid sitting position, and in my experience, it is the most solid sitting position, but um, it's hard to get in that position. It can be hard on the hips, can be hard on the knees, can be hard on the back. And you don't want to have a meditation or a zazen where you're just feeling pain and getting through it. So sit in a cross-legged position, or you can sit on the end of a chair if you can't cross your legs. Just don't lean back on the chair. Sit on the end of it with your feet flat on the floor. You can also sit seiza, which is your cushion. You're kneeling, and your cushion. You're sitting down on your cushion. Cushion is like between your legs. Um, you can just uh, sit on a folded pillow. That's what I used to do until I got this new cushion from a friend of mine. Which I kind of like it. It's got this funky design on it. She's going to Japan to study Zen, and she like put everything in her apartment. She's giving it away. So I took this cushion. Oh, you know what else I took? A bell. Hold on, I'm going to get it and do our sit with it. Okay, this is in honor of Yulia. We'll start our sit with that. So you by now you're settling into your sit. Um, take a deep breath and relax into your body. We're going to do a 20-minute sit today because we're going to start sitting now as I give instructions. So it'll wind up being about a regular 25-minute sit, but I kind of want to give instruction to you while you're sitting because I've found that to be helpful to get my mind into the sit. In Zen, um, at least in my tradition, we don't typically do any kind of guided meditation, but it can be really helpful. It can be a distraction, but it can also be really helpful. So don't think of this as guided meditation. It's just kind of instruction as we um, sit together. So sitting up straight, but not rigid, right? You can feel your lungs expanding, your diaphragm expanding, your lower half kind of near your belly area, near your belly button area, inch below, behind your belly button is what they call the hara or the tanden in Zen. So we're breathing down in that area as opposed to up here, which is like the amygdala area of breathing when you're breathing in your chest. So you're breathing down in your diaphragm, your hara or your tanden, and lowering your breathing center, more solid. You put your hands just flat on your thighs, or you can hold one of the Zen mudras. Um, take your left hand, grab your thumb gently with your right hand so that it's like this, and then you just put it down at that hara spot I talked about, which is right at your belly button, about an inch below your belly button, and kind of hold it there loosely. So you're tying your posture together. You can also do the classic Zen mudra, which is your right hand is flat and you line up your knuckles. So you can see right here, my knuckles are lined up, and then your thumbs lightly touching. And then you put this mudra at your hara. And if it was raining, the rain would be collecting in your cupped fingers in here. So it's like this at your hara. Just kind of hold it there gently. The palms pressed against your um, abdomen gently. And your tongue is lightly touching the roof of your mouth. Your eyes are open with a soft gaze, a couple feet ahead of you. So not focusing in on the floor, the ground, just a soft gaze. You relax your face, the muscles in your face, your jaw, your neck, your eyebrows, the skin in your forehead, um, cheeks, neck, shoulders. Especially if you're holding a mudra, make sure to relax your shoulders. You can probably drop them. Yeah. Taking your seat. I recommend turning away from your camera. Please. We don't need to be looking at not your camera, your computer screen. I'm going to turn away from my camera. You can turn away from your computer screen. And you can put it off to the side if you want to, the whole computer. Now, what do you do? What do you do now that you've taken your posture? Well, the practice is to breathe and hold the posture and to put your attention into this sitting, just sitting. And instantly the mind will wander, or it'll take a half a second. Maybe if you're Shakyamuni Buddha, resurrected from the dead, joined my patron team, have come to this sit, you can go for a second and a half without sitting, without thinking. But mostly the mind shoots up thoughts, and tons of volcanic ash comes spewing once we're sitting calmly like this. The mind to get a chance to release all that stuff. And we just let it's like a dog in the park. I was just in Prater Park here in Vienna, which is a dog park, and I walked through the dog park section and I saw these beautiful dogs just bolting around on the grass, and they were so busy, they had so much to do and so much to say, and they were just let free. Well, that's what we're doing in Zazen. We're letting the mind run free like those dogs, kind of. Don't let me fill that in a little bit. Um, so, like I said, it's going to spew up all this volcanic ash of thinking and feeling and daydreaming. And the practice is to hold our attention open. So, within the context of this open attention, all that thinking and feeling happens and all that emoting happens, and we don't attach to it. We don't identify with it or as it or run away with it or try and repress it and fight it, that the practice is really just to notice, be aware as much as we can to manifest that awareness. I've talked about this before when we've done these sits. That awareness is our Buddha nature. The Buddha, the term means awake. So when we're awake, when a thought arises and it actually we're like, oh, that's a thought. We're aware of it. That's Buddha nature, and it just then the thoughts just come and go, and we're awake in our sitting, and usually we get distracted, and then we have a chance to be awake again and notice, and that happens on its own. Oh, thinking. Sometimes you can note thinking, label the thought. That's what they do in some traditions, and let it go, and keep giving your attention to your posture and your breath. It's really Zazen is this practice of giving the attention, giving over and over, giving that attention calmly and um, sincerely. Okay, so we'll start the sit. Move my clock over here. We'll start the sit with 3 bells. We'll go for 20 minutes now, and then we'll end the sit. I'll end the sit with 1 bell, and then we'll take a little 5-minute break, and then we'll start up again for the next sit. which signals rest kinhin, which is a 5 minute beat or pause in between sits. You can use the bathroom or readjust your sitting position, which I'm going to do. Um, Generally speaking, when you sit, um, you uh, commit to not moving during whatever amount of time you've committed to sit for. So if you said you'll sit for just 5 minutes, then once you settle into your 5 minute sit, then if you're uncomfortable or if there's a clock ticking across the room, or if it's not quite bright enough or too bright, you don't get up and interrupt the sit. You sit through it and sit with it, whatever it is. And Kinhin, rest Kinhin, which is what we're in right now, is also a time to change the cross of your legs. So if you had your right ankle over your left ankle, now you switch it to left ankle over your right ankle. You can stretch your legs out. If your foot's fallen asleep, um, you can shake it out before you stand. You don't want to stand on a foot that's fallen asleep because then you trip and fall. I've talked about this in the past, but make sure that your butt is elevated enough, i.e., your cushion is high enough, or your cushions, so that your knees are resting on the ground. I wasn't used to this new cushion um, when I just sat down on it now, and there's a lot of tension on my sciatica nerve and on my knee and on my hamstrings because I wasn't high enough. So very interesting what happens to the mind when the body is under stress. It's fun to watch during a sit. This was an instance where I just sat through the pain and it was fine. It brought a certain level of intensity to the sit because you really got to focus when there's pain. Otherwise, you get lost in it and you're in hell. So pain is kind of a tool sometimes in sitting. It's one of the reasons why I think our Zen retreats we sit from 3 in the morning till 9:30, 10 at night, because you have to sit when you're sitting that much. Because if you don't, it's hell anyways on some level. But if you can't sit and don't sit, then it's just unbearable. So you learned how to do it. And to that point, this is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to sit and breathe and focus and hold your posture. So if anybody's feeling uncomfortable, we all are, but that's okay. Um, I found it helpful in this sit to do a deeper inhale and a deeper exhale. So I was always taught breathe deeply but naturally. And then I was taught that the way I normally breathe when I'm around people and I'm talking and I'm engaged in the world isn't necessarily natural. It's usually a shorter breath. Somehow I've been trained to be in my body a little less completely. and my breath is shorter when I'm in the world. And so it's a more natural breath to let it go out maybe 10% more, and then in 10% more. Really focus in on that exhale and that 10%, 12%, 15% more, and then the inhale. And if you go there instead of into the pain, if there's pain, hurting, like getting distracted by that or getting distracted by thinking, go into that breath. And I find the sitting to be, well, to be sitting. Okay, so we'll go 20 minutes now. I'll start the sit with 3 bells and then end it with 1 bell. Okay. Stretch out your legs. Log off if you wish, or stick around for a few minutes. Anybody wants to share anything that came up in the sitting, or any questions that you have, you can type them into the little messenger here. I find it useful to, I don't know, hear where people are at when they're sitting, or what any something interesting happened, or interesting questions. It kind of helps put my own sitting in context. Um, this is apropos of nothing, but at the monastery, when you're sitting with a bunch of people, you have to have rules, of course, so that everybody can um, blend in, because it becomes this environment. It's like when we went to Kyoto, there were these sand gardens, and they're very carefully raked at the monastery. It's very carefully raked. And if you've got like one, you know, uh, footprint in there, or like a stick falls right in the center of these sand gardens, it's really visible. And it's kind of the same vibe in the actual zendo. If somebody does something that stands out, it really ripples the the energy, because everybody's sort of settling into this space together. So we had rules, and um, of course, once the sit started, you couldn't move. You had to hold your body a certain way. Um, and as far as like bodily function type stuff went, um, anything that was voluntary was okay, and anything that wasn't voluntary was not okay. So yawning, not okay. That was considered voluntary. But farting, burping, sneezing, coughing, those were considered involuntary, so they were okay. Um, the idea being, once you're in that zone and you commit with a bunch of people to sit together, then it's you're basically, no matter what comes up, you sit through it without exerting your will on the environment at all, or during the sit at all. And it takes a lot of strength to do that. It's not passive. So I wanted that was I wanted to share something with you today from this teachings of homeless Kodo, where he where they talk about, it's actually three people who are talking here. It's kind of, this book is most of you probably knows, but it's set up like the old Blue Cliff Records or the Mumonkan, where you've got a Zen master giving a piece of wisdom or a koan, and you've got a couple other Zen masters responding to it. That's how this book is set up. Kodo Sawaki was a called Homeless Kodo. I don't think he was actually homeless, but he was a Zen master of the 20th century. And yeah, so in terms of bringing a certain type of energy to the sit, which is something that I wanted to share with you today, Kodo Sawaki has some interesting things. Um, So I'm gonna keep typing in your questions, because already, and your thoughts, because there's some interesting stuff here. So let me just share this with you. So Koto Sawaki says, look, human life is complicated. Like, sometimes we're in the middle of a war and firebombs fall from the sky. Then sometimes we're in times of peace and we can just take a midday nap by the fireplace. And then he says, you know what? Sometimes we have to work all night. Sometimes we can just chill out and drink sake. Buddha Dharma is living this life of ever changing circumstances following the Buddha's teachings. So then, that was Kodo Sawaki. So then Kosho Uchiyama, and I believe maybe Kosho Uchiyama was a student of Kodo Sawaki. Um, I think that was the case. And I think Kodo Kosho Uchiyama is a Zen Buddhist teacher who wrote a great book called Opening the Hand of Thought. I could be off on this, but regardless of who wrote that book, Opening the Hand of Thought, it's a great book in Zen Buddhism. So Kosho Uchiyama now is going to talk a little bit about what Kodo Sawaki just said. And he mentions the sword master Musashi Miyamoto, who's a very famous figure in Japanese literature. And it, so Rinzai Zen, the type of Zen that I practice, is called Samurai Zen, and it gets a bad rep for that reason, because it can be perceived as military or having a kind of like that stern um, male energy. So it gets a bad rap, maybe deservedly so in some cases, but there's a spirit behind the type of Zen that I try and practice and that I was taught, that I think is sharp and clear and no nonsense, that I found to be really helpful. I mean, I'm a layperson like y'all probably are, and like when I sit down for those 25 minutes, that's it. I'm not at a monastery anymore. When you're in a monastery, you get to sit there, you sit 3 hours in the morning and you can kind of ease into it. And then you got a silent breakfast, and that's also keeping you in the zone. Then you got Samu work practice, which is physical work practice done in a Zazen state of mind. And you got 3 more hours to sit at night. You know, the schedule carries you along when you're a monk, and by osmosis, you start learning how to sit Zazen. And you sit zazen and meditate. But when you're like a lay person, you've got 20, 25 minutes and that's it. And I don't like to sit on my cushion and then just like get tortured by my thoughts and then at best daydream and maybe fall asleep or maybe just be a pile of anxiety for 20 minutes. Generally speaking, whatever happens during that 25 minutes is zazen, and it's not good to bring a mind of like ambition and expectation to a sit. But on the other hand, I do know the difference between sitting and then just drifting, and the difference is what I think Kosho Uchiyama is talking about here with the sword master Miyamoto, who had a certain type of a spirit, and the spirit is called Suki. So um, So he says some people try hard to practice Zazen. This is Kosho Uchiyama now, thinking that Zen is a discipline for strengthening their willpower and skill. Their practice may become a masterful performance, but such training cannot be called a universal religion that can be practiced by anyone. And so he says Sawaki Roshi always taught us to be attentive without suki, without break. So suki is break, when you're taking a break, I think, from your samurai attitude. But he didn't mean that one could never take a bath. So this is in reference to this Miyamoto got attacked once when he was in his bath, and so he supposedly never ever took a bath again because he didn't want to get attacked again. So he was defenseless. He was suki in that moment. So in any event, he taught attentiveness to our everyday lives, including stormy and calm days, always guided by the Buddha. So, so then, commenting on that, Shohaku Okumura says, he talks again, he picks up this Miyamoto swordmaster train of thought. He says, so Miyamoto is still one of the most popular heroes of samurai novels and movies in modern Japan. In one story, he was attacked while taking a bath without his weapon. After that, he supposedly never bathed again. I don't believe this is historically true. So now he talks about Suki. Suki is difficult to translate. He says D.T. Suzuki explained it like this. Suki means a space between two objects. It's like a slit or a crack in one solid object. When continuity is broken up, and a crack begins to show, there is Suki. When tension slackens, certain signs of laxity appear, which is Suki. In Takuan's terminology, Suki corresponds to stopping. So in swordsmanship, this is taken advantage of by the enemy, who is always too ready not to let the opportunity slip away vainly. Just as a side note, this is very Zen and also very Japanese. When I used to watch sumo with my teacher, it was so interesting. I really got it. His room would be so hot, and we'd be sitting there. We'd be watching on his television sumo wrestling, and you'd have to sit there, and it's like there's all this performance beforehand, and they slap their knees, and they got dust, white dust on their hands, and it poofs up, and then they slam their feet in the ground. They slam their feet in the ground. So there's zen in this sumo. They're sort of they're there in the moment and they're going through this ritual and then they just kind of sit there and they're facing each other and then eventually Suki happens, I guess, where there was a slip in the concentration of one of them and the other one noticed it and then they moved in. So it's very different, I feel like, from Western sports, which are aggressive. Like you come in with strength and you attack because you're stronger. But this Suki is you wait till the other one has a moment of Suki, of distraction, then you're in. So when the Japanese Zen masters are talking about having the mind of samurai, they're having the mind of don't slip. Hold your attention in your sitting, hold the attention to the breath. Hold, because when you slip, man, it's just like all the thoughts come shooting up. Like just now, when I was sitting, there was a, like my mind is just waiting to feed me an anxiety pellet, Here, chew on this. You should be anxious about this. That's Suki. It's slipping. So able to my mind, hold the mind back into the breath, give it to the exhale, give my attention to the inhale, and not give in to these moments of distraction or Suki. So he goes on to say, this is Shohaku Okumura quoting D.T. Suzuki. He says, one of the self-portraits of Miyamoto Musashi, this great swordsman and painter of the 17th century, his pose seems to indicate him to be full of this Suki spirit. But he keeps his eyes wide open so as not to allow the opponent to make use of this Suki that is really only apparent. A great deal of spiritual training is needed for a swordsman to reach this stage, properly called open on all sides. So he says, so now Shohaku Okumura, quoting Uchiyama Roshi, says, Uchiyama Roshi says that being without Suki is different from the common use of this expression as like relaxing one's guard. In Uchiyama Roshi's usage, it means being continuously attentive to every situation in our lives. This is how we take Zazen off the cushion, and why we do Zazen on some level is being attentive to that very basic moment of just sitting. So when we need to work, we wholeheartedly work. When we can take a nap, simply take a nap. When we bathe, just relax and enjoy. We can live our complex lives following the Buddha's teachings in every moment. And I appreciated this. With the name of this chapter is called Seamless Practice, because that's basically how I was taught to practice Zen. Nothing special, nothing big. Just bring yourself every moment to what you're doing, to the activity that you're doing. And in every moment, you're doing an activity, always. Even if you're just sitting, right? Even if we're just sitting, it's an activity, posture and breath, just sitting. And so we give ourselves completely to every activity. And that's Zen. It's Zen if we're riding a bus or if we're clicking on the email, which is harder to give yourself to because it's so cerebral, but nonetheless, there's probably email Zen possible, walking Zen, smiling Zen, bathroom Zen. It's all Zen. Okay, let's see what Slipjack50 said here. I'm not sure who that is, but how do you deal with the there it is moments? Best way I can explain it is not enlightened, but more of a groove as I think about it. Well, the best way to deal with anything that comes up in sitting is whether it's amazing or horrible, is just to note if you need to note it, become aware of it, and then give yourself back to the sitting again. my experience is that you have that ah, there it is moment. And I hope you enjoyed it because it's gone. And now you're going to suffer. I suffer because it's like, where'd it go? Where is it that it just was? Where did it go? And oh, I'm so maybe this now I'm here. Oh, I can't wait to answer my call. And you're just stuck in garbage for the next I'm thinking of now in a more longer retreat. You're stuck in torture for hours. There's nothing like that was the climax of the aha moment is gone. So that reinvest that energy back into the sit. That's the practice is give yourself back to the sit. And if you have a horrible moment, like give yourself back to the sit. Just keep reinvesting. It's like compounding interest and spend instead of spending the cash uh, the Dharma dollars from the insights and the aha moments invested back into the practice by just giving yourself again to whatever you're doing, whatever the activity is. Okay. This is in reference to the aha moments. I've been recognizing them as just fleeting states and not holding on to them. Yeah, you can't hold on to them, and they are just fleeting states. And also recognizing them as fleeting states is fleeting. Um, It's a reoccurring deal for me. I just plan on continuing to recognize, but I'm curious about your insight. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's good to not get too stuck on it because if you're having the insight of there it is, then like I said, it's like you're kind of in you're in your head and you're not sitting. Um, so you can appreciate it and then let it go and keep doing the practice. Um, John Meyer says, in the Zendo, turning only to the right so as not to bump each other. Yeah, that's true. That's true actually. You only turn to the right. And the exit door is well, no, when you leave, you turn to the left, but that's only when you're leaving informally, the Zendo. So there's usually two doors in a Zen meditation hall at a monastery, anyways. There's the shoji door, which is the door you enter the Zendo in for formal practice, and then you leave through that door for formal practice. And then there's the Jikijitsu door, which is the door you go out for walking meditation and come in for walking meditation. Oh, Brian Slipjack says, thank you. My name is Brian M. And then there's a big heart emoji in front of the M, and I can't see what your last name is. Um, just an example, yeah. Yeah, so, okay. Um, I hope you guys enjoyed the sit. Maybe we do this a little bit more. It's really helpful for me to actually sit with people. It makes me own the sit in a different way than when I'm sitting by myself. Um, so thank you. And thank you for being patrons. This is just a patron only sit. So I really appreciate the support and being able to offer the videos to you guys and sit with you guys and write stuff and post it on Patreon for y'all. So thank you and ciao. Have a good Sunday.